Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another episode of German Politics Explained. Today I just want to tell you a little bit about the German Federal Assembly. For quite good historical reasons, in Germany the president is not elected by the people. He is or she is elected by an institution compared to a federal parliament, but a little bit different, and that's the Federal Assembly. And today I want to tell you more details about this Federal Assembly. So have fun and let's get started with the video. Federal Assembly. The Federal Assembly is a constitutional body whose sole task is to elect the federal president. It consists of the members of the Bundestag and the same number of members who are elected by the popular representatives of the Länder, that means the German states, according to the principles of proportional representation. How many members the respective representative body sends to the Federal Assembly depends on the population of the respective state, whereby only citizens with German citizenships are considered. The federal government announces the number of members to be elected in the Federal Law Gazette. The members assigned to a state are then determined by the respective state parliament by proportional representation from the lists of proposals, according to the number of votes cast for them. In the preparation of the lists of nominations and in the elections, the rule of procedure of the respective Landtag, that means the state parliament, apply. Federal law, however, stipulates that each member has one vote, that the lists are closed, and that in case of equal claims for the last seats according to the Grond is solved by the President of the Landtag. The Grond is a special calculating system for seats. It's quite complicated, so I'll leave it out here. Many state parliaments in 2010, there were 10 out of 16, set up only a single joint list of proposals in which mostly candidates are including according to the result, which would result in election strictly by faction affiliation. Thus, this result is secured even if not all members are present or would vote differently. In itself, such a selection mode is considered correct. However, in practice, a construct is used which can be considered as a list at most of the places to be filled, while places for possible followers are given in a fractional manner. This is criticized by several well-known constitutional lawyers and led, among other issues, after the Federal Assemblies in 2009 and 2010, to organ litigation before the Federal Constitutional Court. By judgment of 10th of June 2014, the Federal Constitutional Court ruled that the applicant is not competent to submit an application seeking to establish that the choice of delegates in the national assemblies of the federal states was incorrect. A decision in this matter is not made. For the Federal Assembly, it is possible to choose who is eligible for the Bundestag, the federal parliament. The representatives sent to the Federal Assembly do not have to be members of the parliament. In addition to the top politicians of the individual states, former politicians, celebrities, athletes and artists are also regularly elected. For example, when you look on some of the pictures I'm using today, there's a very bright spot on some of the pictures. That is the most famous German drag queen, Olivia Jones. The members of the Federal Assembly are not bound by orders and instructions, so they can vote however they want to. If a member of the Bundestag who moved into the Bundestag by means of an overhang mandate resigns after ascertaining the number of state representatives in the Federal Assembly, this place remains vacant, as there are no followers for overhang mandates. As a result, it may happen that the number of state representatives is greater than that of the members of the Bundestag. This was the case, for example, in 2004. Immunity. The members of the Federal Assembly enjoy immunity, indemnity and dismissal protection from the time they accept their election until the end of the Federal Assembly's meeting. The Immunity Committee of the German Bundestag decides on the waiver of immunity. On July 12, 2007, this jurisdiction, according to previous practice, has been included in the law on the election of the Federal President by the Federal Assembly. On April 2, 2004, the repeal of the immunity of the Berlin member Peter Strieder. On April 29, 2004, the Baden-Württemberg member Walter Döring took place. Expense allowance and travel expenses. At the Federal Assembly in 2010, each of the committee member received an expense allowance of 60 euros. In addition, hotel costs refund up to 170 euros and a travel allowance was granted. Those are the most current data I could get, so I don't know how it was at the last election. Date of the Federal Assembly. The Federal Assembly shall meet at least 30 days before the end of the term of office of the Federal President, as a rule every 5 years. In the case of premature termination of the term of office, it shall meet no later than 30 days after that date. The President of the German Bundestag calls the Federal Assembly. He determines the place and time of the meeting. It is parliamentary custom to involve the Bundestag vice presidents, the Council of Elders, and the leaders of the Bundestag factions in this decision. After Federal President Heinrich Lübke had announced his premature departure from his office on the 14th of June 1968, expiring June the 30th, 1969, and thus advancing the beginning of the term of office of his successors, the election date in each case set to May the 23rd. It was Karl Carstens who, as President of the Bundestag, determined the 30th anniversary of the promulgation of the Grundgesetz, the basic law, our constitution, on the day of the 7th Federal Assembly, in which he himself was elected Federal President. The established tradition was followed until the resignation of the Federal President Horst Köhler and President Christian Wulff of 31st of May 2010 and the 17th of February 2012, which were issued without notice, required different dates for the election of their successors, because after their unnoticed resignation, they only had 30 days to hold this election. Venue. The first Federal Assembly met in Bonn. That was the capital until reunification. The second Federal Assembly met in Berlin in 1954. In addition to the desire to underline the open Berlin question, that was in the time of the Cold War, was the solidarity with the population of the German Democratic Republic after the popular uprisings of June the 17th in 1953, a reason for the determination of this venue. Since 1954, the members of the Bundestag from Berlin, that means West Berlin because the East was not part of the Federal Republic, also elected the Federal President, even though they had no voting rights in the German Bundestag until German reunification. The Soviet Union protested that the event violated the city's quadripotent status. Nevertheless, the Federal Assembly met until 1969 in the East Prussian Hall on the exhibition grounds under the Berlin Radio Tower. It regularly came to protests of the German Democratic Republic. On March the 5th, 1969, the Soviet Union was flying several supersonic MiG-21 fighters over West Berlin during the Federal Assembly. After the Four-Power Agreement on Berlin, the Federal Assembly met from 1974 to 1989 in the Beethovenhalle in Bonn, the then capital. Since reunification, all Federal Assemblies have been held in the Reichstag building in Berlin, which is also now the seat of the Federal Parliament. Execution of election. The presidency of the Federal Assembly is held by the President of the Federal Parliament, the Bundestag.
It exercises the house right as well as the police and authority. As a rule, the Federal Assembly does not issue its own rules of procedure. The rules of procedure of the German Bundestag apply accordingly. Candidates for the office of Federal President may propose each member of the Federal Assembly. In practice, the political groups agree in advance on certain candidates, and any German who has the right to vote for the Bundestag and has reached the age of 40 can be elected. The proposals must be submitted to the President of the Bundestag. They are checked by the meeting committee for the legality. However, the rejection of a proposal must be decided by the entire Federal Assembly. Candidates can also be proposed before the second and third ballots. Unapproved candidates may not be elected. In the 1949 and the 1954 Federal Assemblies, there was the possibility of spontaneously writing the name of a person who was to be elected Federal President on the ballot paper during the current ballot, without this person having run for office or even knowing of the proposal, but this is excluded since 1959. The Federal Assembly is constituted by the determination of its quorum, which is given when more than half of the members are present. After a brief introductory speech by the President of the Bundestag, secretaries are elected by a show of hands, with this task usually being performed by the secretaries of the German Bundestag. They have the experience, so it's much easier. Furthermore, it will vote on proposals, if any. The election of the Federal President takes place by secret ballot without debate. Members are called individually to the polling booths, usually in alphabetical order, where they fill out the ballot and drop it in the ballot boxes. It is elected who receives the votes of the majority of the members, that means the absolute majority. If this majority is missed in the first and second ballots, the one who receives the most votes in a further ballot, that means who gets the relative majority, is elected. The chairman declares the Federal Assembly closed when the elected person has accepted the election. The swearing in of the Federal President takes place when he takes office in a joint meeting of the Bundestag and the Bundesrat, that means the Federal Parliament and the Federal Council, which consists of members of the federal states.
That's already it. I hope it was interesting for you. You learned a little bit more about Germany and its political structures, and you look forward to my next video. For now, I just want to say thanks for watching. If you haven't done so yet, please subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to click the bell so you won't miss the next German Politics Explained video. And I don't mind if you share or like this comment or comment my content so more people can learn about it. By the way, tomorrow, or for people watching this later, on Sunday, I start a new series, EU Explained. As well as many people don't hear anything about Germany in their home countries. A lot of people are talking about the EU but don't know much information about the EU and its structures, and I'm going to start a series about this too, and it starts with very simple facts as a basis. Who are the member states? So if you like, have a look there. It's in my playlists, and I put it in one of the cards in between. But for now, have a nice day and see you soon.